All right. Offline files and EFS are only in the professional versions. They're not something you expect a home user to want. BitLocker, unfortunately, only in Enterprise and Ultimate, although in Windows 8, I think BitLocker is now available at all versions. And BitLocker to go can only be created in Enterprise and Ultimate editions, but you can use the files on them in other editions. So, one of the main things people do is they lose their stuff. They usually accidentally delete files, write over them and such, and so there's a lot of ways to get things back. As we said, you can use Windows Search. If you just save the file, you can't find it, and it might take a while, but it'll usually find your file. The recycle bin is your first place, of course. If you just delete files normally, they go to the recycle bin, and you have a long time to get them back. The recycle bin uses a certain percentage of your drive, and then it throws away the oldest stuff to make room for the newest stuff, so typically things will stay in there for weeks. There's previous versions and backups also, which are getting more new, and we'll talk more about them. But let's start with the recycle bin. Not everything goes into the recycle bin. For example, if something was never on the hard drive in the first place, this is how I remember it. I don't know if this is the designer's plan, but the rule is you would never have more space consumed after deleting something than before. So they won't take something that was never on the hard drive in the first place and put it on there to put it in the trash. So if it was on a floppy and you delete it, it does not go in the recycle bin. On a thumb drive or network share.
Most of the things that you delete. So
what's that?
Like most of the things that you delete, it goes to the recycle bin.
Yes, if you delete from a desktop or My Documents, things will go in the recycle bin. But if you delete from a network share or an external device like a USB drive, it will not go in the recycle bin.
Oh, I see. So
because it was never on your hard drive in the first place.
So it was in the...
It was on the thumb drive, yeah. And also, if something was zipped and you delete one file from a zipped folder, it's not willing to unzip it and make it bigger to put it in the recycle bin. So it just throws it away. And if you delete with shift delete or from the command prompt, things go in without entering the recycle bin. So you can choose to permanently delete things that way. By the way, of course, nothing is ever permanently deleted by any of these processes. If you use a third-party forensic tool, you can get things back. Nothing on a hard drive is ever actually deleted until you write on top of it with a new file. All you do is mark those sectors available. If you have an SSD, though, because you've got an Ultrabook or a MacBook Air or something, then the files do evaporate after you delete them. Sometime later, they are just cleaned up in a process called garbage collection. Anyway, so you can change it. By default, 10% of each drive is used for its recycle bin, unless you turn it off or adjust it. You can restore things. Now, one thing you can't do, this is a pretty well planned system, really. If I create here, let's find a copy of the lecture or something. If I go to Documents, and go here, and get a copy of, say, this lecture. I'll get this one. Put it here. Page, all right. Okay, then I'm going to delete it with just delete. Are you sure you want to move this file to the recycle bin? I'll say yes. Now, if I want it back, I can go into the recycle bin, and it'll be, I can view this with details, and then you'll see more dates than you're used to seeing, date deleted and date last modified. So if I sort by date deleted to get the most recently deleted things, this is it. Now, if I try to open it, it won't open. It just gives me properties. This is because they don't want you to get in the habit of putting things in here and using them there. You can't use the recycle bin like a folder. The only thing you can do is restore. And that will put it back where it came from, and now you can open it there. This is actually a pretty good idea, obviously. You don't want otherwise people would get in the habit of just putting things in the recycle bin and expecting it to be there later, and that wouldn't be fun. All right, so you can restore things back to where they came from or put them somewhere else. Now, in Windows Server 2003, first came out a feature called Previous Versions. And this came along with System Restore, which has been around since Windows ME. System Restore is an automatic backup feature. It backs up only crucial system files like the registry, and it does it frequently. It does it every time you install anything with a proper MSI installer, like new software, every time you put on a patch, and for Windows XP it did it every day, that if none of those other things happen, and I think it does it every week now, if nothing else happens to provoke it. So there's a certain chart of the drive set aside for that, and there's a series of restore points. You can use them to restore your system. Now, when I took forensic classes, I learned this restore feature is typically not present on servers, and it is actually dangerous to use. I've been using it for years, But the restore points don't really restore everything about the files. They don't get all the metadata associated with the files. So they actually damage your machine somewhat to use System Restore, but most of the time you use it because you're having problems anyway. And in practice, most people find it very handy. The machine isn't working, go to restore point, move it back to the way it was last week. In most cases, it works better for end users, but it's not present in server operating systems because it's not wise to do on a server. But it does work for the data files on the server, not the system files, and that they call previous versions. And now, yeah.
Sorry, can you explain what you were saying about why it's bad for the computer, the system? The
Yeah, I wish I could. I just know the people that are big in an NTFS file system, the forensics people, look into the details of the file. They tell me that restore points bring back the file's contents, but they don't restore all the metadata, like permissions and dates and stuff.
And that makes it unstable or something?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So the end result you have is not really equal to what you used to have. And I do know in practice that System Restore sometimes fails spectacularly. Sometimes you restore a machine and it becomes much worse. So it's not like a Brachio go back or deep freeze that really takes the machine back to the way it was. It's some kind of imperfect attempt to roll it back, and sometimes it fails. Anyway, so now in Windows 7, the restore points now contain not only system files, but also copies of your documents. So it's making extra copies of your documents, and you can go in, if you edit a document every few days, you can go and see previous versions of that document here. They'll be stored automatically in restore points. So that's kind of fun. Now, this is intended for people who travel, really, all these synchronization technologies. And now everybody has tablets and smartphones and stuff, and they put their stuff on the web, and they use things like Dropbox. But before all that, Microsoft had their attempt to do the same thing, and certainly Microsoft is really alive to the fact that corporations can't use that amateur stuff. So they have a bunch of generations of products that make it easy for you to have copies of files on multiple systems, so even when you're in your laptop on BART, you can still access your important company documents. You can choose to make files available offline, and all that will do is make copies of the file on your local folder. This is Microsoft's earlier version of what later became Dropbox for most people. So you can mark your file as available offline. There'll be a local copy of the file. You can go right on BART and edit the file, and when you come back to your company, back to work and connect to the domain, it will automatically update the one on the server with the changes you made. And if two people turn on offline files and they take it away and modify it, when they come back, now there's a conflict. There are two different versions, and it will warn you about that. And Dropbox will do the same thing. It will warn you if you make two different changes, that now we have two different files here, what should we do about it? There's other ones here, Windows Live Mesh and Windows Live Sync. Windows Live Sync came and went. Windows Live Mesh, I think, is still around. And they're all attempts to have multiple devices connecting and synchronizing. It is a big issue. So offline files make a copy of the files on your hard drive, and it's kind of funny, because if you want to see your files, you would typically go with a path like this, / server, folder. It goes something like that to get to a server. And if you have offline files turned on and you put in that path, it's really looking at your local copy. It's really on your C drive. But your machine acts like it's in that location, so you can save it to the usual place. So it's transparent to the user and convenient when it works, and it will automatically keep everything synchronized. So it's pretty cool to do it.
But that's,
Yeah.
because if you were on a network, you could put that in and you'd be actually navigating to that network share.
That's right.
So
And
I
you
don't
go-
understand what you were just saying.
That's right. And when you get on BART, you go back to the network share as if it was there. You type in the same path, and you're actually looking at your local copy.
Just if you have offline,
If you have offline
if
files,
you
yeah.
have it synchronized.
Yeah, so when you have offline files, it puts it in the same place,
Yeah.
apparently, to your machine. So you can connect to a server even though you're not online, or so it seems.
I see what
Yeah,
you're
that's
saying.
what
So,
it
but
is.
if you're online, then it goes to
If you're
the-
online, I'm not sure what it does. It synchronizes every 6 hours. I'm not sure. I think if you're at work and you edit it, it might take 6 hours for it to edit the network copy. I'd have to test it and see. I would like to think it would go right to the network, but I don't really know. So you can right-click a folder and just make it offline, always available offline. This is, in my experience, not used that often. I think most people find it to be not extremely convenient and prefer to use things like Dropbox and SkyDrive. SkyDrive is the more cloud-based version to improve this to the more modern age. All right, and then it gets a green mark saying that thing is available offline. This green round mark indicates those files. that are actually always available, is what they call it. You've got a local copy even if you're not connected to your network. You can disable the offline files feature if you want to, and you can also disable it in group policy, and I would certainly encourage people to your corporation should definitely control this. They should make a decision to use this or to not use this and can implement it by group policy, because it does mean extra copies of all your files are going home with everybody on their laptops. And you want to know if that's happening, and if it is happening, you want to understand how many copies are being made and whether they're encrypted and things like that. Yeah?
Excuse me, it's also considered synchronized, like, for example, when you are inside the train from the bar. Well, I have seen people that they use like it looks like a flash drive, so
Yeah.
that they can get access to
The internet. Well, see, unfortunately, Dropbox would do that. If you put in, that's a cell phone connection. If you put in a cell phone connection, so you can get to the internet, Dropbox would synchronize right away. So would SkyDrive. Offline files will not. They will not synchronize just from an internet connection. They'll only synchronize if you go log into your Active Directory domain again at work. We go to work. So that's probably why it's considered, I think it's technology is kind of out of date these days, offline files. You can choose to encrypt them, and then the copy on your local machine will be encrypted anyway, so people that don't have your password, if they steal your laptop, they won't be able to read those offline files. And you can change how much space is used by these things if you want to. But Live Mesh is probably better, and SkyDrive is much better. And SkyDrive is still under revision. The next version of SkyDrive should come out in October and be even better again. So Live Mesh gives you some storage space on the cloud, and it synchronizes all your devices, and it supposedly even works with the Mac. So it gives you almost all the features you would have had from Dropbox and a little more space.
Does it still exist? I thought it was phased out.
It may be phased out. Let me search. This is Microsoft's
Yeah, I think it was phased out.
Live Mesh. Permanently, learn how to sync. Oh, they're going to be permanently. Oh, yeah, they're going to be permanently deleted. Access files. It was retired on February 13th. Yeah, thank you. Gone now.
Holy shit.
Retired. So it's gone.
Why did you take it out though?
Because of SkyDrive, I think. This is something Microsoft does a lot. They, like I say, they have all these different ways to do the same thing. They finally canceled the old one and put in the new one. So SkyDrive is going to be the new one, the new feature to take care of all this. And SkyDrive is just about to come out with an update. I heard about it at one of the Tech Pro events. So I think SkyDrive is the one that won. Yeah, Live Mesh was a beta last time anyway. It didn't last very long. All right.
I think it's the same with Windows Live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But some of those live products are still continuing. Microsoft does this a lot. They abandon things quite a bit. Anyway, Live Mesh actually let you remote control your machines too, but it's open. All right, so the other things you can do, you can relocate your personal folders. Or you can go Start, Documents, and then go to My Documents, and go to Properties, and there's a Location tab here. Right now it says See Users S-Bound Documents, which is where it is by default. But this is probably not where you want to leave it, especially if you're at a company.
From there, you can also specify what folder you want to open, right?
Exactly. No, specify what folder is going to be called Documents. When you open Documents, where are they going to be?
What document?
Yeah, and see, this is the default. This is kind of a miserable place to put it. It's on the C drive. It's on your local workstation, so at a company it's probably not getting backed up. And if someone else wants to access it, it's not there. So usually at a company, you put it on a share, on a server. Everybody's documents folder, and even their desktop can be up on the server, so that it's getting backed up. And if the client machine is messed up, I can just replace the client machine with another one, and the work can continue unimpeded. So it's common to relocate these things. And if you have a domain, you typically set up roaming profiles too, so people can actually move to a different computer and log in, and they have all the same experiences they would have had at their first machine. Anyway,
Is the
Yeah.
paths called also a domain?
what's that?
The paths.
You mean Dropbox?
No, the path. What you write in the command prompt, that's called a path, right?
When you write the command prompt, what's the question?
I don't know. Keep going.
I think that's the last slide.
Okay, good, thank you. This is what we had.
Oh, you had the image of the, you were showing where to,
Yeah, I was showing where it is, yeah,
Yeah,
which is
down
here.
there, right?
Yeah, so if you go to, I was here, there's documents, properties, yeah. We bring it back up. There. Okay, what about it?
Oh, no, that's called a path, right? Or-
Yes, that's called a path. See Windows documents, yeah.
Oh.
See users as bound documents. Okay. Good. All right, so now there's libraries. This is another alternative in the new operating system. You can leave the default folders alone or just create other folders and add them to your libraries. That's another alternative as opposed to moving them in a documents folder. I must say, I tested moving my documents in Vista, and it led to weird contradictions and problems. I hope they fixed it in Windows 7, but I haven't tried it since. And in most companies, you set up roaming profiles, which accomplish the same thing, appropriate for domains. So you can relocate them anywhere you want, my documents, my pictures, and so on. And then the index will not index them anymore, because you're not really expecting them to be, so you're going to have to add them back to the index list manually, or put them in libraries, which would accomplish both of these things at once. But it is an issue at every company. You have to somehow prevent people from storing important company documents on their local workstation, where other people can't find them, and all that jazz. We're rather likely to get this thing infected. You're likely to want to just replace this hard drive or re-image it frequently as bad things happen, and you want to be sure that there's nothing important on a local workstation. Everything good, everything of importance to the company should be on the server. So there's a lot of ways to encrypt things. Encryption is one of the most effective security procedures because it's cheap for the defender and expensive for the attacker. That's why it's there are a lot of stupid security plans, as we all know, a lot of stupid rules that just get in the way of work and don't really protect you. But encryption is one thing that really strongly works. So EFS was available, it's still available in Windows systems. You can encrypt a folder on your hard drive, and then it will turn green, the name will turn green, and that folder will only be available to your user account on that drive. If someone else logs into that machine, they won't be able to go in the folder. That's all it does. You can't email it because it only works on NTFS volumes, and email is not an NTFS system. So it's not enormously useful. The only thing it protects you from is other people who have accounts on that machine. If many people are sharing one machine. BitLocker is far more important, and that's why it exists. Microsoft realized that NTFS didn't solve a lot of problems. Even if you use your laptop at the airport, it doesn't really stop people from getting in your files because all they have to do is guess your password. BitLocker does, though. BitLocker encrypts the entire hard drive. And by the way, the other thing wrong with using EFS to protect laptops is it doesn't encrypt the whole drive. So even if you encrypt your documents folder, when a document is open, there's a temporary copy over in the app data folder, and when you shut down your machine, it makes a temporary copy will go in the page file, and in the hibernation file, if your machine hibernates, there's a lot of extra copies of that thing floating around your machine. And so only if you encrypt the whole hard drive can you really go to court and say, we did not lose the data. The guy lost his laptop, but we didn't lose the data, and that's what you have to say.
Oh, I had a question about those copies when you try to open it.
Yeah.
It also, I think, came out the same, right?
What's that?
It came out the same information.
Yes, they have the same information, yes.
Right?
Yeah,
But
yeah, so there are temporary copies
but
made.
they are like blurry, right?
They have what?
They look like blurry. Like,
No, they're not blurry, but they're often incomplete. What happens is they're images of what was in memory.
Oh,
Yeah, but you can see them. Often it's the whole file though. And it's not, for example, a page file and the hibernation file may have only fragments of your file, but they could, and when you want to be able to go to court and say we didn't lose it, you have to have something in place that really will protect it. And that's what BitLocker is. Encrypting USB drives with BitLocker to go is also cool. USB drives are a huge problem, and people are losing them right and left. So EFS, you just go into folder properties and click the advanced button, and there's an option here. It is actually a usability flaw. There's two square buttons. Square buttons, you can usually have multiple selections. This should be radio buttons. You can compress or encrypt, but not both. I don't know why, but that's the way it is. Anyway, the first time you encrypt something, it will warn you that the operating system has now created an encryption key based on your password, and if you don't back it up, you could lose it. Like if your system crashes or something corrupts your system files, you'll lose that key and you won't be able to open these folders anymore. This is usually the main thing encryption does. When you first start using
if you
encryption...
compress it,
What's that?
but if you compress
Well, you can't compress and encrypt at the same time, one or the other.
no,
But if you compress it, there's no risk.
There's no risk, right?
Yeah, there's no risk, because decompressing doesn't require a key. But so if you lose your key, you lose that file forever. And that's usually what happens to people when they start using encryption as a beginner, is they lock themselves out of their own stuff. So you have to have a plan for that, and what you should do at a corporation is you would have a recovery account that is added to always be another account, and that recovery account has a special password that you lock in the safe or something. So there should be some other way in at companies once you start using encryption. Anyway, that's how you back up your key. A box will pop up and offer to take a copy of your key on a floppy or a network share or something, so you've got it. And the file name will show up in green letters, like this EFS demo, and you've got a project where you play with these things. The encryption itself is fine. AES 256 is recommended by the government, and as far as anybody can tell, quite unbreakable. But the problem is it doesn't encrypt the whole volume, and therefore it doesn't really protect your data. So the right thing to use is BitLocker. Or if you don't want to pay a lot of money for BitLocker, and it sure does cost an awful lot because you have to have Ultimate, you can get the third-party TrueCrypt, is a free version. But this encrypts the entire volume, so when you start the computer, you have to put in a special USB stick or type in a long 25-digit key to start. And hopefully you
Is
don't
that
steal.
encryption also considered like MS-config?
Yeah, what about MS-config?
Like, is it something related with encryption? Because
No. No, I don't think so,
No?
as far as I know. All right. Anyway, so it's considered quite secure. There is, by the way, an attack against it. There's one way to break into it with, if you can get your machine in standby, then the key is in RAM, and they can freeze the RAM and put it in another machine, boot from Linux, and dump out the RAM, and that's the cold boot attack. They developed that at Stanford. That'll defeat any of these whole drive encryption routines, but that's pretty exotic. And if you actually just shut down your machine instead of putting it in standby, then it'll be protected from that attack. Anyway, so BitLocker to go encrypts your USB drives, and so you can read it in other versions of Windows, but if you want to read and modify the files, you need Windows 7. And you don't get all the features unless you're actually using Windows 7 Enterprise or Ultimate. And the book mentions robocopy, which is a somewhat useful thing to know. This will actually copy folders with all their properties. It's something you might need to do for backups. Anyway, you got another question out there? All right. Well, I got one more set of iClickers, and that's it. So which of these will be in the recycle bin? Guess I'll quit at 35. All right. The only one is from the desktop. B. All the rest of those do not go in the recycle. All right. Which of these will help you recover your data if your laptop is stolen? I think I better not grade this one, huh? 'Cause it's gone.
Yeah.
The answer is none of them, unfortunately.
No,
No, that?
no, it's not.
That would have been the only answer, but it's gone. Forget that one. All right.
So it's gone.
It is gone, and so the only answer is like Dropbox. But anyway, that's not a Microsoft product, and therefore it does not exist. All right. Which of these will prevent a thief who steals your laptop from reading your files? Well, I sure hope they update the cert test so they're actually about these things. All right, that's going to be BitLocker, of course. Okay. There are two concerns when you lose your laptop. The first thing is someone else can read the data, and the second thing is you don't have the data anymore. It takes a different cure for each of these things. All right, let's forget that too.
Come on.
I don't know. This Microsoft Cloud services are changing too fast for me to keep up with them. All right. If you forget where you saved your stuff, which of these is going to help you? 30. But, that search, of course, is the only thing I'll say to you there. All right. Well, let's see who got the most right of those icebreaker questions that actually worked. Instructions, there we are. 8s and 7s, all right. So it's 55, 80, 88, 60, 58, 61, 76. All right. So that means now I'll go to the lab if anybody wants help. And on we go.